Previously, Isaac's mother filled the group in on all of the changes in the town that had occurred since they'd left months earlier. They were hoping to have the planned council up and running in the next month or so. In addition to Isaac's mother, it would include Madame Waterfall, Felgrim Ironhammer, and to the group's surprise, Berga. Isaac's mother then interrogated him about his love life, and he quickly made it clear that wasn't something she needed to be worrying about just then. The group decided to split up for the day. Isaac, Zarakir, and Nova headed to the forge. Kess made their way to the brothel to see if Madame Waterfall had any work for them. Bertram planned on simply wandering around town, and Thalia asked to join him. Adria went out of town for a run, while Ren people watched from a roof. At the forge, Felgrim filled Isaac and Zarakir in on some more of the local news. Then Zarakir asked to borrow the forge to get some work done on his weapon. At the brothel, Madame Waterfall was a bit skeptical about most of what Kess had to tell her, but that wasn't particularly unusual considering, well, Kess. When they told her about their new goal of earning enough money to buy a magical item that would allow them to properly fuck a dragon, though, she was glad to join in story time and tell them about the 2 separate occasions where she'd done just that. Adria met up with Elowen to run with them. She asked them if they wanted to head back to the village with her for the festival, as she could take them there and then bring them back, and they told her they'd think about it. Bertrand spent the day with Thalia, and he could tell that she was dealing with alcohol withdrawal. The 2 of them talked about their past for a bit, sharing various details about their lives. The conversation continued, with both of them talking about some of the trauma they'd experienced and how they dealt with it in very different ways. Ren climbed up on the rooftop of the mayor's mansion and simply watched what was going on around him for hours. That night, everyone but Kess, who was busy doing a minotaur at the brothel, headed back to Isaac's parents' home. They met up for dinner and talked about their plans for the next day, including possibly visiting Rialta. They talked to Thalia, explaining just who Rialta was and that she'd be very safe if she agreed to stay there. She was welcome to travel with the group when they went to Adria's village, though, if she wanted. Nova suggested that Thalia come with them to speak to Rialta and see how she vibed with her. Then they'd go to Adria's village. Once they were done there, Thalia could decide where to go at that point. Thalia agreed to that plan. The next morning, Adria reached out to Rialta to let her know that they were coming, but it wasn't an emergency for once. She, Bertrand, Nova, Ren, and Thalia went to visit her at the Grove, while Isaac and Zarakir stayed behind to work at the forge. Kess, recovered from the night before. The group was surprised to see that Rialta had added to her home since they'd last been there. She'd added more space to make room for Tony and Naren, as well as setting up a brick stove outside instead of just using a campfire for cooking purposes. Naren showed off the new magic she'd learned since moving in with Rialta. The group filled Rialta in on everything that had happened since Adria left her home. Rialta explained to them that she'd seen signs of shrines being set up in the forest recently. It had been centuries since the Empire had made an example of people. The shorter-lived races didn't remember what had happened 300 years earlier. She also told the group that she'd created some healing potions for each of them, just in case. Adria and Tony went for a quiet walk together, and she brought up that Bertrand had recently died. She could tell that he wasn't used to casual hookups and had no idea how to react, and she tried to help him in that regard. After talking with Naren, Adria offered to bring Naren with them back to attend the festival at her village. Once that part of the group headed back to Quickwater, Elowen met up with Adria to tell her that they'd like to head back to the village with her as the festival as well. Isaac pulled his sister aside and spent some time teaching her the basics of using a dagger. Adria and Nova took Naren shopping for some clothes. And that is where we left off.